Good morning, everybody. It's Keith Engel with TGI Sports Talk, live here on a Sunday morning, live from East Greenbush, New York. A little bit of a cloudy, more fall-like day than we had yesterday. We had a beautiful day yesterday, a little windy, but we're heading towards fall. 48 degrees still. No, I'm sorry, 52-ish. So not going to be much more than 57, 58 today, but I hope it's nice where you guys are. We'll be talking today. I got a lot of things to talk about. I want to thank my guest from Friday, Dick Hoops Weiss, longtime Hall of Fame sports writer with the Philadelphia Daily News and the New York Daily News. We talked a lot about college football, talked a little college basketball. We'll probably have Dick back on when we do more college basketball. For those of you that I'll be sharing this to some groups for, we're going to cover, if I've got it shared to your group, I guarantee you we're covering content that is relevant to you guys. We're going to cover college football recap from yesterday. We're going to talk a little about the Major League Baseball playoffs and the Yankees demise. I've got a couple of thoughts on that. I'm going to do an entire show once the playoffs are over, I think, on the Yankees. You saw my show from about a month ago, and everything I said then still stands. This was not any comments I made this week were not after the fact. Everything I said in that show about a month ago came true. And we'll also jump in the NFL. We'll review some news, kind of look where we are at the season after 4 weeks, with two teams having played 5 games. And we'll do our picks after a while. So if anybody wants to call this morning, again, the number is 518-308-8225. So again, we'll cover all those topics today and maybe more, whether we go an hour. Last week we went over 2 hours. I don't have a problem doing it. If we get stuff to talk about, if you guys call and want to chat, we'll certainly do that. And we'll go from there. I mean, there's just so much going on right now, right? I mean, I didn't even talk about the NBA Finals, which, again, are 3-2 Lakers and the Heat. It's been hard for me to get into the NBA this year. I do have Harvey Ayrton coming on this Friday, though, and I'll have a promo later on. We'll probably talk a little. We'll talk NBA basketball and the Knicks specifically. Harvey's another Hall of Fame sports writer and prolific author. He's got a lot of books out and a brand new book coming out, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about on Friday. But that book is called Our Last Season: A Writer, a Fan, and a Friendship. So tune in Friday. It's going to be a very interesting conversation with Harvey. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. Harvey's covered a bunch of pretty much every important event you can think of in the last several decades. So we'll have lots to talk about with Harvey. And I'll have a promo, as I said, coming up for that probably later today. So let's jump into it. Yesterday, the NFL. God, thank God it wasn't. I'd be late for work. 7 months at home now, guys. Oh my gosh. Anyway, yesterday, very interesting day. Finally, we had some really good games on the schedule. There's a lot of things that stand out to me. We'll go through the games probably. The big games one at a time. We'll talk about some things that I take away from them. One thing that does stand out to me, and I'll talk off the bat, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we get to the NFL, obviously, is the COVID situation. More and more fans. I watched Florida, Texas A&M yesterday, and they had to have at least 50% capacity, if not more. But again, the clusters of people, hundreds, no masks. I'm not sure, every team's been affected. Florida's about to, Governor DeSantis. And again, this isn't a political football. You guys, hopefully, at least my listeners, don't go down that road. This is not a political thing. This is a health issue. And the sports is important to the fabric of the country, and I agree that we should be trying to play them in the safest way possible, safe for the players, safe for the fans, safe for their families on both sides, and the coaches. And it's been the situation has been a little tenable to me. I mean, you've seen outbreaks on all levels of sports. In college, there's at least, well, I say at least, 30-ish games canceled or postponed. 2 again yesterday. Virginia Tech was without 19 players or staff, people connected to the organization. I think there were players in yesterday's case. I'm not positive. But in their game in North Carolina, again, sorry about that. You're traveling without 19-year players. You're at quite a handicap. So at these games, I'm seeing all these people. And I started to say in Florida, the governor there has now decreed that every sports team on every level, as far as I know, can have full capacity at the stadiums. I don't know, obviously the teams don't have to adhere to that. They can have whatever policy they want to put into place, but he's allowed 100% capacity. And again, as I watch this, I mean, I don't think we're to the point where we should be allowing that type of thing. It's not safe for the players. It's not safe for the fans. It's not safe for the players, the coaches. Again, I watch the college games. I watch the pro games, and the coaches, they've got masks, but when they're talking to anybody up close, they're not wearing them. What's the point? So, again, no matter what you think on either side of this issue, I'm not going to take an opinion. This is a real thing. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to know what's going on here. I just try to do the smartest things for myself and my family, and that's it. Hopefully the college and pro teams are going to continue to do that. I mean, you can't go into a bubble situation in college football. You can't do it in the NFL. Anyway, I mean, that's one of the stories. That's one of the takeaways from yesterday for me. As far as the scoreboard goes, let's take a quick run through the scoreboard yesterday. Early in the weekend, games weren't all that big a deal. Houston over Tulane, Georgia Tech over Louisville. Louisville's very disappointing in my mind right now in the ACC. Big game last night. My team that I follow, the Miami Hurricanes. I touted them as an upset, potential upset of the week, and they, as usual, fell on their face against Clemson. I mean, the 3 previous games before this were something like 98-3. I'm not even positive about that. I'd have to look back, but I'm not far off. Could have been 98-10. Regardless, that's not much. Last night they get beat 42-17, and the game's not even that close. Dabo Sweeney with an odd choice to try to 61-yard field goal at the end of the half, and Miami blocks it and runs it for a touchdown is one of their scores. And they had a score in garbage time in the fourth quarter. Clemson wasn't playing their best, but Clemson at not even their best is 25 points better than Miami. And Miami's been playing really good football, but obviously they're not at that level yet. I wish I'd played this game later in the season. It might have had a different, I don't know about outcome, but I think it would have been a better game. So, that's that game. Trevor Lawrence has another good game. Travis, I'm going to butcher Travis's name. Travis Antonin. You guys can correct me. Drew, if you're out there, help me out with the pronunciation of his name. Maybe you can hooked on phonics me. I tend to butcher some names, guys. I apologize. But he's got himself in the Heisman discussion, I think, especially after yesterday's game. 149 yards, 2 touchdowns. They had their way with Miami, unfortunately. Alabama and Ole Miss, very interesting game. Obviously, pitting Lane Kiffin against his old boss, Nick Saban. He spent 3 years as the offensive coordinator. Sometimes kind of volatile between Nick and Lane, but Lane Kiffin rehabilitated his reputation a bit at Alabama. Got the job at Florida State or Florida Atlantic, as you guys know. And now he's moved on to Ole Miss, and he has got an offense that is clicking on all cylinders all season. And they gave Alabama all they could handle yesterday. It was 63-48. I mean, that's another theme. Is anybody playing any defense at any of these games? You'll hear when I tell you these scores, guys, you're going to be amazed. 63-48, 44-21, 41-38, 56-45. We'll jump on those games here in a second, but a theme is, where's the defense? Other than Army, and I'm glad Army's playing defense. My wife gave me that line. It's really sad, the state of football, college football, and pros to a certain extent, is nobody's playing defense. And part of it's the rules that have been put into play. I don't like it. Too many points. Anyway, back to the Alabama-Ole Miss game. It was a really good game. Ole Miss falls to 1-2. Alabama's obviously 3-0 and a favorite to be in the playoff, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they gave a tussle. They've been in all. Well, they won one game. Obviously, they've been in all three games. The problem is defense, obviously, which is a lot of people's defense. Tennessee and Georgia. I was on the wrong side of this game yesterday. I really thought Tennessee getting 12.5 points yesterday was really going to be a good play, and they did not play well. They got ahead. They were ahead 21-17 in this game, and then they got 27 unanswered points scored against them. And they've got a pretty good defense, which played well for 3 quarters, and things kind of fell apart. So Georgia looks for real. As we talked about the last few weeks, I think they found a quarterback in Stetson Bennett, the 4th, by the way. There's been 3 other Stetson Bennetts. It's a great name for the South, right? I mean, I don't know if those generations go back to the 1800s, but that's a classic name for a guy playing at Georgia, I think. Stetson Bennett, the 4th. Might get his name in the Heisman race before it's all over. Who knows? Playing great. So really, I mean, no surprise, I guess, in the outcome, but a little bit of a surprise in the margin of victory. Another, I'm on a bad roll. When we get to my NFL picks, as you know, I had a horrible week last week with my pro picks, and I continued yesterday with my college picks. I was on Florida yesterday on the road. Been playing really well, but no defense. It's a theme you'll hear. They lose to Texas A&M, who I was on the previous week with points against Alabama. It's one of those teams. I get them, and I just cannot pick them right. They beat Florida outright yesterday, 41-38. It was, neither team could stop the other team. I'm surprised there weren't more points scored in this game. There was some turnovers that probably kept the score down. Notre Dame back after a hiatus from both a bye week and COVID-19 postponement. They were a 21-point favorite yesterday. They struggled a little bit, relatively speaking. They won 42-26. Probably wasn't as close as that score, but Notre Dame's playing well, playing a full ACC schedule, as we know. Otherwise, they would not be able to play enough opponents. Certainly not enough good opponents to be a part of the playoff picture. But right now, they're number 5 in the country and at 3-0. North Carolina, Virginia Tech. We talked a little bit about the Virginia Tech situation, missing 19 guys. They're 19th in the country, playing a really good North Carolina team. And Sam Howell had another big game at quarterback for UNC, 3 touchdowns. Again, lack of defense here. 56-45 North Carolina. I'm not sure what's going on with the defense across the country. I don't know. Maybe somebody here's got an answer. Rick Sherlock's got a little comment here. True test next week against Alabama. I think you're talking about the Georgia team. They're playing well. I know you're a Georgia fan, Rick, and I've been on them early in the year. And yesterday I took some points, and it was probably it was a bad mistake. So that team's playing very well. again, defense problems everywhere. Arkansas, Auburn. I'm not. They're lucky to get away with this game. The officiating was horrendous. The end of the game, they're down by 1. Nix really kind of fumbles a snap and then downs the ball or spikes the ball to stop the clock backwards. To me, those are 2 infringements. They should have lost the ball, but the officials saw it another way. Auburn keeps the ball, kicks a field goal to win the game 30-28. They're still 13th in the country, but I'll tell you what, Arkansas deserved better that game, and I think Auburn's in for a little bit of trouble here going forward. Number 15, BYU just squeaks by UTSA, and BYU 4-0. They had some big victories early on. I mean, they're one of the few teams from outside of the Power 5 conferences that may have a shot to kind of crash the party because they couldn't run the table. But they're playing an independent schedule, and you just can't play teams. They don't have enough good teams on their schedule. So that's going to be a problem for them going forward. Missouri, LSU, 45-41. Defense? Anybody? Defense. LSU struggling. 1-2 out of the gate. 1-2 in conference. I think we could have seen some of this coming with the number of players that they lost to the NFL draft. Record number drafted both in the first round and throughout the draft. But again, tough day for them yesterday. Missouri might be a bit underrated, even if they're 1-2, and they played decent against Alabama. So they could be underrated, could make a run here later in the year. We'll see what happens there. The Red River, whatever we're calling it this year, the showdown, the shootout, the rivalry, the fracas, whatever. 2 teams struggling coming in. Oklahoma beats them in overtime, 53-45. Texas should have been very good. Sam Ehlinger played okay. Threw a lot of passes, 2 touchdowns, 287 yards, but some bad decisions as well. Texas is in trouble, and Herman might be in trouble there. I mean, it's just they're not clicking. They're not clicking. Texas should have been better than this. Oklahoma, as we know, has had their problems. Shane Rattler, they benched him during the game yesterday. He came back and led them to the victory, but they've still got some problems. The Big 12 has been taken over, and we'll talk a little bit about Kansas State game here in a minute. But right now, Kansas State and Iowa State might be in the driver's seat there. Kansas State's been a big surprise. Both those teams, by the way, lost their openers to low-rated non-conference teams and looked horrible. And K-State, as we talked about on this show, played Oklahoma the next week, badly undermanned because of COVID, and people have not defected, but opted out of the season. And they end up beating Oklahoma. And now they're 3-0 in the conference. So things are changing. The Iowa State team we just talked about beat Texas Tech 31-15 yesterday. A really nice performance by Brock Purdy again this week, the quarterback for ISU. 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Texas Tech is struggling, not that good this year, but Iowa State, 24th in the country, is making some noise in the Big 12. What else we got? Any other interesting games here? Not that one. Virginia gets clobbered by North Carolina State. State got off to a bad start. You may see them ranked soon. Virginia's kind of a disappointment. Last year they were a contender in the ACC, and Brock Mendenhall had done a really good job there since he got there. But so far they're 1-2 in the ACC and struggling mightily. South Carolina beats Vanderbilt. Syracuse. Oh my God, Syracuse. Where have you gone? 0-4 I'm sorry. Are they 1-3? Sorry, but 1-3 in the ACC. Their season's blown up. They get beat by a 0-4 Duke team yesterday. They get beat badly at home. How's that happen? Got to be better than that. Army, always root for Army. If you've never been to an Army game, by the way, I mean, you can't go this year, by the way, but get down to West Point and see that spectacle of an Army football game. It's a lot of fun. You got to get there early when the cadets march over to the stadium. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Do that. So it'll probably be next year when you can do it, hopefully. But, do that. Army's 4-1 again. They played the Citadel, not a huge challenge, but still. Pittsburgh gets beat by Boston College. BC's better than people think. From all appearances, they're 3-1, 2-1 in the ACC. Pittsburgh was ranked early in the season, has struggled, hasn't played well even in their victories, hasn't played great even in their victories. I mean, again, you are what your record says you are, but they fall to 2-2, 3-2, 2-2 in the ACC. But Boston College beats them yesterday, 3-1. That would be defense, 31-30. Again, little defense. That's actually a defensive struggle compared to some of these games. So that was an interesting game. I like to see where BC goes as they start playing some better opponents here. Kansas State, as we talked about earlier, is now 3-0 in the Big 12, first place with Iowa State. And with the big guys losing to each other, Oklahoma had a must-win yesterday, and they got it. Texas is probably done. Navy comes back. Sorry, guys. Navy comes back, finally plays a good game against Temple yesterday. Temple's first game. They have not played a game yet this year. Navy comes back and wins that game 31-29. Even for Navy, that's a lot of scores. Interesting stat in that game. The final drive, I think it was the final drive, Navy, let's see if I can find my note. Navy ran 15 plays for 26 yards and ran 9 minutes off the clock before they kicked the field goal to win the game. That's impressive. You go 26 yards and run 9 minutes off the clock? That's quite a feat. Just a little tidbit there I thought you guys might be interested in. Mississippi State. I was one of the guys who said Mike Leach is going to really take the SEC by storm after they beat LSU. Well, now maybe LSU's not that good, especially after Mississippi State's performances here the last 2 weeks. They get beat by Kentucky yesterday, 24-2. So apparently Kentucky was playing some defense. Because the air raid attack of Mike Leach in Mississippi State was not effective against Kentucky, and Kentucky's been a disappointment up until now, only 1-2 in the SEC, and they were pretty highly touted early in the year. So good to see them get back on track. And we had a couple of games postponed: UAB and Rice, and Florida Atlantic and Southern Miss. So as usual, we've got some postponements. Just a couple takeaways. To tie, as I said, they struggle, but they win. No defense being played anywhere. Talked about Mike Leach. We talked about Georgia. We talked about Arkansas getting screwed against Auburn. Sorry for my language. Texas, Oklahoma. We talked about Tom Herman. We talked about Tar Heels. Watch out for North Carolina. Don't sleep on North Carolina. Sam Howell is an NFL quarterback. And he's playing very, very well. And with Mac Brown has just revitalized that program for a second time in his career. Rick's, sorry, Keith, best screen I've ever seen against you. Yeah. They had a tough time last night, Rick. It was unfortunate. They ran into a buzzsaw. Again, that team didn't play well. Clemson didn't play that well. And they just torched Miami. BYU we talked about. Let's talk about the playoff picture right now. I mean, it's going to be tough right now for some of these. Well, it's going to be very tough for any of the group of five, to crash the party. You got your Power 5 conferences. You got your group of 5 conferences. I don't see anybody. And then you got BYU and Independent. I just don't see anybody crashing the party. And I think it's going to be very difficult for the Pac-12 to get anybody in there because they're starting so late. Probably the Big Ten, even I think they start 2 weeks yet before they start. But again, they're going to play 9 games, I think. So I think, whoever wins that league, especially if they go undefeated, Ohio State, Penn State, trying to think of some upstarts that couldn't rise up there. I mean, Michigan's always a perennial disappointment, but they could get that 4th spot. Right now, I think you're looking at Alabama, Clemson, and Georgia are in the driver's seat for the playoff. And again, as I talked about last week, and I talked about with Dick Weiss Friday, I think the NCAA has missed the boat, an opportunity to experiment a little bit. I mean, other leagues, the professional leagues and whatnot, have experimented and changed some rules, which I'm not happy about all of them, but some of them were necessities. And I think the NCAA missed the boat a little bit by not expanding the playoff to 8 teams at least. I kind of advocated for 16. Dick thought that might be a little much, but this is a year to try it. And because of the situation, we're going to get to the end of the season, and Alabama and Georgia are going to have played, 11 or 12 games. And the Pac-12 teams, if they're any good, Oregon will probably be a decent team this year. There's always a few surprises in that league, but they're not going to have any chance to make the playoff unless they really, really run the board and do it in an impressive fashion. It's the only way they're going to have any chance to be part of the playoff. And the only ones that, so those 3 spots are locked up, and then you got the Big Ten winner. I wouldn't say locked up. That's an unfortunate error on my part. I mean, they do have to play the schedule out here, and Alabama's shown some weakness on defense. Clemson is probably the best all-around team, although they didn't play their A game, as I said last week. And Georgia might be the best team of the 3 right now. I could make an argument that they are. So let's just assume that those 3 teams are still there at the end, and you got 1 spot left. A lot can change. This conversation will change as we go through the weeks. At least 1 spot. Ohio State, Penn State, maybe Notre Dame. Again, I'd say Clemson is a front runner there in the ACC, but remember, Notre Dame is playing a full ACC schedule this year. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do. Notre Dame, after being off, played an uneven game yesterday, but again, before they were off, they had put up 2 really good performances in a row. So it's going to be tough for anybody else to crash the party, I think, outside of the power conferences. The group of 5 teams, the AAC is a really good football conference, but those guys beat each other up. Memphis is good. SMU is good. Central Florida is good. Lost their first game at home in I don't know how long here, a week or so ago. I think they were off this week. And they keep reloading down there. They do a great job with that. Again, I'm a mid-major school and having to recruit against the likes of Florida and Florida State and Miami, and even the other mid-majors down there, Florida Atlantic, and I'm missing one, but they do a great job. But it's going to be tough for those teams because they knock each other off. They can't get in there. You saw what happened with Central Florida a few years ago. They went undefeated and didn't get in the playoff. That's why I think they should have expanded it. Go to 8 teams. If you go to 8 teams, at least you take the champions of all the Power 5 conferences, and you got 3 wild cards. Much better system than what we have today. Somebody's always getting the short end of the stick. So, anyway, let's move on to real quick the Heisman. We'll talk real quick about the Heisman watch. I mean, Lawrence is playing as well as you would be expected. Mac Jones from Alabama has moved himself into that conversation. He was a question mark before the season, and he has made himself a force to be reckoned with there at Alabama. So you have to give him a shot. Kyle Trask from Florida is playing tremendous football. The BYU quarterback, Zach Wilson, is playing great football. And one guy who may crash the party, as I mentioned earlier, and I'll butcher his name again, is the running back from Clemson. I won't even say his name this time because I don't want to butcher it twice. He may be moving in. Again, this has become a quarterback award, right? But running backs, who knows? Might be time for one of them to sneak in. It's certainly not going to be a defensive player. You know, all the years that we've talked about defensive players should have a chance at the Heisman. Where's the standout defensive players in this league? Look at these scores. 38-24. That's a defensive struggle. 53-45, 45-41, 56-45, 42-26, 63-48. Come on, guys. Play some defense. Let's play football. This isn't Madden. And it's even starting to seep into the NFL a little bit. And it's just frustrating. All right, I'm going to move on, guys. Again, if you're interested in calling, let me put the number up since we know what we're going to be talking about. Again, if you're in any of the groups that I'll post this to later, do not fret that I'm posting content that doesn't apply to you, because I will only post content that applies to you. We've talked about college football. We're going to talk quickly about the Major League Baseball playoffs. I probably won't spend a lot of time there today. I'm going to do a show here in the future, and again, if you don't remember, I am talking about adding a third slot. I don't know when would make sense. I'd love to hear from you guys about times and days that make sense for you guys. Remember, I do have a real job, so can't really do an afternoon show. But I'd like to have a show where I can just tackle one topic, right? So, and we'll get there, I guess, once baseball ends and college football. Well, college football is going to stay in full swing through December, but at some point, once we get into January, we'll have the NFL and nothing else to talk about. So, what was I talking about? Don't remember. Oh, the groups. Guys, there will be relevant content. If I post it to your group, there will be relevant content, I promise. So, Major League Baseball, moving on. Oh, I was going to post the number. I've got a little Phil Dunphy thing going on here. Those of you who watch Modern Family will understand. I'll tell you a quick story. My wife was a diehard Modern Family watcher until I met her. I didn't watch the show at all. I loved it and came to realize that her assessment of me is pretty much accurate. If you're a Modern Family fan, you'll get it. I am one half Phil Dunphy and one half Jay. I can't think of Jay's last name now, but if you watch the show, you'll know what I'm talking about, and it's I find it very appropriate, actually. Major League Baseball. We're down to 4, guys. You got LA against Atlanta, playing in Texas. You got the Rays and the Astros. The hated Astros move on. They'll be playing in San Diego, Petco. The Yankees decided the Yankees nightmare. I'm going to touch on that quickly, guys. Tampa Bay is a really good team. The Yankees are a very flawed team. Again, this is not after the fact analysis. I talked about this a month ago, and everything I talked about came to fruition. The way they play baseball, the way they wait to sit and hit home runs and don't move base runners and don't play good situational baseball. They're too smart for their britches. Again, that whole fiasco in Game 2 didn't need to happen. Didn't need to happen. I would let the kid pitch, not bring him in as a way to try to turn around the lineup and then bring Happ in. Happ should not have gotten off the bench in that game. That series. I said that a month ago. Happ can't pitch in a big spot. He'll kill us, and he did. Again, we're going to get into this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because I will have a show dedicated specifically to the Yankees again. like I did a month ago, and we'll look at the offseason. We'll look at some of the things they need to do. They need to do a lot of things. I said a month ago they need to bring back Tanaka. I don't know that anymore. I may rethink that. LeMahieu is the machine is the number one priority, and they have got to bring in a shortstop. You know, move Kleber back to second base. They've got to make some changes. We can't sit. First of all, we can't have guys that are out half the season like Stanton and Judge. You can't have guys that just look for home runs. Find a way to get rid of Stanton. But we'll go more in depth. This team is fundamentally flawed. And I don't blame Aaron Boone as much as I blame Brian Cashman. He puts his team together. Cashman. He puts his team together. And, you see what happens. Every year in the playoffs, we flame out for the same reasons, basically. So that's where we stand there. And I'll leave it at that for now. Tough loss the other night, but it is what it is. Tough loss for the Marlins. Marlins did a great job. Don Mattingly, Mel Stottlemyre Jr., who I hope to have on this show here in a couple of weeks or soon, is their pitching coach. They did a great job. And, of course, number two, people thought Jeter was crazy with some of the things he was doing when he took over that team. But there's a team that is doing things the right way. Watch them play a game. Watch them pitch. Watch them hit cutoff men. Watch them play fundamental baseball. Watch them situational hit. Yeah, Ray, I agree. Cash was definitely behind that debacle in game 2, backing up a little bit. It just didn't need to happen. If you want to start the kid, I'm fine with that. I talked a month ago how I love him. Let him pitch. You didn't have to pull him in that spot and try to get cute. Hap should not have come in that game. You could have gone, I'm digressing. You could have gone easily. Cole, the kid, Tanaka, the bullpen, which kind of they did in game 4. Montgomery pitched great. And it was kind of a bullpen game. And then Cole. And they got to Cole anyway in game 5, so it really didn't matter. And he pitched great. Love his game. We'll talk about that when we dive into the Yankees. But again, the problems are 1 run on a home run. That's it. I don't want to take anything away from Rays. They're a very, very, very good team. Anyway, where was I? Oh, talking about the Marlins. Watch them play. They play great baseball. Don Mattingly has to be manager of the year. He should be. With everything that went on there, with the team and the prospects for their season before they had the COVID situation. I know a lot of people will blame them for the Phillies debacle. I'm not sure who I talked to about that. I talked to somebody here a couple of weeks ago who, while they were impressed with the Marlins' effort, they weren't happy with the fact that they came to Philadelphia and infected them, which kind of started a chain reaction throughout the league. But anyway, Major League Baseball's done a good job here in the playoffs, keeping everybody safe. Now they're going to let fans in Texas, though. There's going to be limited fans for the NLCS. There's going to be limited fans for the World Series when it's played there. Obviously you remove the bubble. It's not a bubble anymore. As long as you've got fans coming in, it's no longer a bubble. You've changed the controlled environment entirely. I don't like these fanless games any more than anybody else, but we got to keep people safe. As I talked about in the last segment. I worry about what's going to happen once more fans get into these venues. Ray is talking about. I'm assuming Donnie Baseball should have been manager for the Yankees, and all he blamed Cash for not signing him. I don't agree. I do agree. Sorry, I do agree with you. I did not like. I do think he did him wrong when he hired Girardi, and passed over Mattingly, who was Torrey's bench coach. But as it turned out, he had some personal issues going on at the time. I don't know if you remember. His wife was going through some things on a personal level, so it may not have been the best time for Donnie to be the Yankee manager. And, it might have been the only time Donnie had a chance to be the manager. Who knows? Maybe we circle back. I don't know, at some point in his career. But anyway, what else Ray got going on here? Those won't be the team fans, and it won't make a difference. I agree. It won't make a difference. Major League Baseball wants some people in the stands, but my problem is not people being in this, who they're there or not rooting for or rooting for. My concern is just fans, again, as you've seen in college football and pro football, if you're paying attention to the way people are conducting themselves in the stands, it's not a pretty situation. So backing up, Ray's talking about Donnie again. He was groomed and he should have been at least given a chance. I don't disagree. I mean, hindsight's 2020, right? At the time, I wanted him to have the job. I was angry he didn't get the job as well. Again, it may not have been, and he should have had a choice. I agree with you there. But as it played out, Donnie probably needed a little time away, from the game, and it might not have been pretty for him. Again, who knows? I don't know. He could have won the World Series. But given that type of situation in his personal life, it may have been a problem. Yeah, well, I agree with you. If the Rays had played, this is Ray again. If the Rays had played in Yankee Stadium, it would have been completely different games. I agree, but again, they weren't. You got to play where you had to play, and I don't care where they're playing. The team's flawed. The team needs to be fixed. Played lots of games in Yankee Stadium this year that. Well, they had a great record at home. Their record on the road was atrocious. But again, they got to play better situational baseball. And until we can do that, we're going to keep losing in the second round of the playoffs or in the ALCS and not get to a World Series. What else? I mean, LA versus Atlanta. Let's look at that a little bit. Do I want to talk about anything else? No, I guess that's it. So the games themselves, LA against Atlanta. LA looks very good. I mean, with Atlanta, we got a great local story here, at least in the capital region of New York State. Not sure where you'll be hearing this show from when you see it, but here we have a great local angle on the Braves and Ian Anderson, who's been lights out, absolutely lights out. In the regular season and in the playoffs. He's their only shot. I mean, they got a good offense, but the Dodgers are really, really good. And the Rays against the Astros, I mean, I keep rooting against the Astros. They keep winning. Drew had made a comment earlier about the remorseless Astros. I totally agree. It's really annoying to watch them pat themselves on the back, like this is some kind of vindication that they would have won whether they cheated or not. As a Patriot fan, all the things they've been through the years, it angered me as a fan of the team because I felt they didn't need to do those things. Maybe the Astros didn't need to do those things, but you're tarnished once you did them, and you should show some remorse. Patriots didn't always show remorse either, which also made me angry. But I keep rooting for the Astros to lose. And while the Rays are a great story. Oh, by the way, backing up to the Yankees and Rays, it was just karma, right? That Mike, what's his name? Mike Berceau would hit the home run to win the game after Chapman buzzed him a month ago or 3 weeks ago, whatever. That started a war of words between the two teams. So, anyway, back to these games, Rays and Astros. I'm going to root for the Rays probably, but part of me really wants to see an LA Astros World Series. I think it would be poetic for the Dodgers to be able to play the Astros on a level playing field. I would like to see the Yankees play them on a level playing field. Obviously, we felt that pain of the antics they were pulling as well. Ray's talking about their team well managed and a team that plays together. I think you're talking about the Rays, and I agree. Absolutely agree. Again, even though they won the game on a home run, or they won the game on two solo home runs, I think the Rays are a much better situational hitting team than than the Yankees or anybody else. So, which will be the better series? Race, spell it out. You're talking about LA against the Astros. I think, from an interest standpoint for myself, it will be. I can tell you that. Just confirm that that's what you're talking about. So anyway, I'd like to see LA against the Astros. Yeah, if I said the Rays, I apologize, Ray. I meant the Astros. So LA against the Astros because of the revenge factor. I find it hard to believe I'll be rooting for LA. As a Yankee fan, I'll be rooting for the Dodgers, but I would be if they're playing the Astros for sure. Yeah, Astros, Dodgers. I thought that's what you meant, Ray. It's very interesting. I think it'd be a great series to watch, and we'll talk about it. As we head through the championship series here, we'll talk about them again next week. Looking forward to the World Series, and we'll dive into that once we get there. A big factor in these playoffs has been, no off days. Once the series starts, you're playing 5 games straight, or now it's going to be 7 games straight. So you got to really be smart with your bullpen, which I don't know that Aaron Boone was. So that's one of the things you got to take away from these playoffs. What else did I want to cover here? Fans, obviously, we talked about no fans was a huge loss, not playing. They'll play at home. To Ray's point, it really hurts teams when you don't have any home field advantage. Yankees wouldn't have had home field advantage in any of these series to begin with, but they would have got some games at home. There's been a few breakout players. Ian Anderson, as we mentioned a little while ago, and he's from up Drew's way, Shenandoah grad. He's been just lights out. He's really stepped up here in the playoffs. That's really all I got for baseball today, guys. I think we're going to move on. It's been kind of a bastardized season, and hopefully, next year we get back to something more normal. We'll talk more about baseball and the future on future shows. Like I said, I might add another day. Just got to come up with a time where I can do it, so we can focus on individual topics on this show. Because there's so much to cover. It's 9:47. I'm just getting to the NFL. It's been, we're 4 weeks into the season. So we're a quarter of the way through the season already. The COVID situation still is a problem in the NFL. Not anything that's threatening to shut down the season or anything, but we've had to move games. The Bills and Titans are theoretically playing Tuesday night, but the Titans keep coming up with more positive tests every day we go by, and they're under investigation now for the way they've handled the whole thing. And if it's found out that they have broken protocol as badly as it seems, I mean, they had guys. Hang on a second, Drew. They had guys practicing together when they should have been quarantined. I think the coach, who I like a lot, Mike Vrabel, is going to be in some serious trouble along with the front office if things pan out the way I think they will. There'll be some suspensions, there'll be some fines, there'll be some draft picks forfeited, but we'll see if they actually play Tuesday night. Drew is telling me that, and this is news since I came on the air, because I've been checking this all morning, that New England and Denver is officially postponed. I'm not sure if we had more positive tests. New England, as you know, has had 2 very high-profile positive COVID tests. First, Cam Newton, and now Stephon Gilmore, probably their 2 best players, and then a practice squad player. They had stayed away from the facility for the last couple of days, so it was going to be very tough to prepare. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with me, Drew. I don't know if you have any more update on why they were postponed, if there was any more positive tests or it's just a safety thing. I'm not surprised. I guess jumping into that a little bit, the NFL is going to have to juggle things around. They've been able to do it so far because they were able to move the Titans-Steeler game to week 7 when I think the Titans had a bye week and the Steelers were playing the Ravens, and they were able to move that Ravens-Steeler game to a week they both had a bye. So they've been able to move things around. But if there's going to be more games, and bye weeks start to go by the bye, which is going to start happening here, it's going to get harder to finish these games. One positive thought one possible thought they're thinking of is pushing the playoffs back a week, adding a week 18, and then everybody, any games that were postponed would be played in this week 18 window. It's a possibility, probably not a bad idea. One of the better ones that I've heard so far. So anyway, I mean, they've had tests positive. The Jets had some positive tests this week. I thought there was one other team, but it's not coming to me now. So there's still some potential. The Jets could be postponed today, I suppose, but it's getting to be kind of late in the morning for 1:00 to get postponed. So they're probably playing that game. Let me catch up here on a couple of counts. So Drew says there's an unspecified Pat with a positive test. Great. I'll be digging a little more into that once we finish up here, probably. I don't think I can really do it without being really bad visual of watching me search the internet for information. I'm sure that would be exciting for all of you, but not going to do it. And Ray Golick, Bill Belichick could win games with a team full of practice squad players. Potentially, but you got to be, as long as he can prepare them, Ray. Because that brings me to my next topic, some of the games from last week. And I'm going to focus on my team right now. And Ray, you're a Cowboy fan. We can chat about their struggles a little bit. But let me stick on the Patriots for a second. They had a tough situation last week, lost their starting quarterback. Lost the ability to practice and prepare, but a lot of teams are going to get that this year. I don't ever make excuses for my team losing. They lose. Usually you can find places, no matter the circumstances, I can find reasons you lost a game. Taking away outside circumstances, referees and whatnot. So the Patriots played very well. They had a very good game plan coming into that game, and Brian Hoyer just destroyed all their chances of winning. They were inside the 5 twice. Doesn't remember they don't have any timeouts at the end of the first half. They can't even kick a field goal. First of all, we got to score a touchdown there to beat the Chiefs. You can't kick field goals and beat the Chiefs. The defense played tremendous for 3 quarters. Actually, they played tremendous the entire game. The defense, the offense put them in a bad position several times. Short fields. 1 pick 6 by Stidham. But again, Stidham was in a bad situation. He's going to start. Well, he was going to start this week. We'll probably have Cam back if the game's been canceled or postponed, I should say. I'll probably have Cam back when they do play again. So they should have won. They should have been in position to win this game. I'm not saying they would have won, but they gave themselves no chance to win based on the performance of the quarterbacks and even some other people. Even some other people. I'll talk about this in a second. Let me finish up with the quarterback situation. Brian Hoyer, there's a reason the Patriots have released him 3 times. I might have talked about this last week or maybe on one of my interview shows, but there's a reason, everybody talks about, the Patriots love Hoyer. Well, they released him 3 times. He never started a game for the Patriots until last Monday. So anyway, they should have won. Stidham was in a bad position. He'd been hurt, hadn't really played, had very few reps. I mean, I can't blame him. He didn't play well, but, at that point in the game, he was in a bad spot. They had their back to the wall. He didn't get any help from Edelman, who's like sleepwalking out there. He's hurt. He's been banged up with his knee. He hasn't been as involved in the offense, but he's also out there sleepwalking. I'm watching his facial expressions and his body language. And I was on a show with some other webcasters Friday. And we got talking about this. Is there a Tom Brady hangover in New England? And I think there is for certain guys, and Edelman's one of them. I think he misses Tom. They had a simpatico relationship. They just read each other's minds, and he doesn't have that with these two guys. Well, even Cam yet, he doesn't have that, and he struggled. And just that ball went through his hands the other night, and it ends up being a pick six is inexcusable. I mean, you're still in the game at that point. So Stidham was in a bad spot, but the Patriots lose a game. I had a couple guys talk to me Friday about the referees and the in the grass thing with Mahomes. Belichick for some reason doesn't throw the challenge flag. I don't know. There's a couple other ticky-tack calls and whatever. But I will tell you, I don't blame referees ever. Anybody, and if you guys that are in the room here maybe haven't followed me through the years on Facebook as I post about my team during games, you don't hear me complain about referees. I may complain about referees a little bit. Let me amend that a little bit. I might be like, oh my God, horrible call. But at the end of the day, I will never and never have said we lost the game because of this call or the referees were terrible, because my theory is you do not, and I've told, I watch not all you guys, but when I say all you guys, I mean football fans. The refs are all out to screw you. Joe Buck hates your team. Whatever. We all watch our game in our own little bubble with our own little agenda, but my theory is when it comes to refereeing, you don't put yourself in a position to get beat by bad calls. Just don't do it. Everybody benefits from bad calls. Everybody gets penalized by bad calls. At the end of the year, it's going to all even out. Don't put yourself in a position to get beat by a bad call, and then you don't have to worry about the officiating. Play good football. Patriots did not play good football. They left themselves in a position to get beat. Both by their own processes, and they aren't helped by the referees. But again, that's just not. It's just not. It's not a real thing. It's not a real reason you lose games to say referees beat you. Sorry, if you get beat because by 3 points or 6 points or whatever it is, and a referee made a bad call, don't get ahead by 10. Play better. That's it. Well, you're right. Maybe except for Angel Hernandez, his umpiring. I may not be able to argue that one, right? You may have the one, the one thing of my argument that doesn't stand up, I guess. What else about the NFL? Let's look at the standings quick before we go our picks. We'll start in the AFC because, oh my gosh, the NFC is really funny looking. Kind of surprising. The Bills 4-0, not so. They got a good team. It's funny. It's the way they're winning games. Their defense is really, really good. We worried about their offense, and we worried about Josh Allen. He's playing great football. They've come from behind at least 2 of those games, maybe 3. The defense has let teams back in games after they've had big leads. So it's a little surprising that they're 4-0. And I'm excited. The Patriots are going to play them in a couple of weeks, and it's going to be fun to see. I mean, I think the Patriots are going to have to beat them twice to have a chance to win the division. So we'll see how that goes. We talked about the Patriots. The Dolphins are 1-3, but their point differential is only -3. They've been in games. They could have beat Seattle last week. They've had a chance, and they're improving slowly. They got a great coach. Flores is a great coach. And Tua is going to play eventually, right? I mean, Fitzpatrick is playing well enough, but the Jets are the Jets. They get Sam Darnold is probably lucky he's not playing today. Joe Flacco will be starting. Jets and Giants 0-8 combined. Pretty sad situation in New York. In New Jersey. Sorry. In New Jersey. Buffalo fans, sorry, we know you're the only New York team. In the AFC West, no surprise, the Chiefs are 4-0. They've had their really bad game. They won it against the Chargers a few weeks ago. They played, they played well enough to get by the Patriots on Monday night. So good job. Raiders were kind of a surprise at 2-0. Now they dropped 2 in a row. They've been outscored badly. Their defense is not playing well. Again, a theme basically in the NFL. Many teams are not playing well on defense, just like college. It's not quite to the extreme of colleges. But again, defense is a rarity. I'm a little surprised at the Broncos at 1-3. I thought they were going to be a team that maybe took a step ahead this year. They lost their starting quarterback a couple of weeks ago, so we'll see how they rebound. We hope. They're not playing the Patriots this week, so that might be a godsend for them or for me. The AFC North, Steelers are playing really good football. Surprised me a little bit. Big Ben missing a year at his age, which I would say is the same age as Phillip Rivers, right, Drew? I called it Phillip's 40 last week. I believe they're the same age. The Ravens, there are the Ravens. I mean, they're playing really good football. They played a bad game. I was surprised that they were out of it against the Chiefs. I thought that would be a great game, and obviously it was not. But I think the Ravens are certainly there for the long haul. The Browns at 3-1. Not a big believer in Baker Mayfield and the way that team is kind of put together, but they're giving up a lot of points, but now they're scoring a lot of points. So they got an interesting game today that we'll talk about during the fix section here. And the Bengals have been better than advertised, I think. Joe Burrow has played well, got his first win a few weeks ago. And he's going to be the real deal, Joe Mixon's playing well, but I may pick against them today, just an FYI. The Titans were playing really good football before they went out. Surprisingly to me, I was not a big fan of them going forward because I'm not a big Ryan Tannehill fan. Drew affirmed my Roethlisberger age. I'm sorry I aged those guys last week and made them 40. Ben looks like he's about 50. So, and Rivers throws like he's 60. Anyway, that's just me. Where were we? Titans, Ryan Tannehill. They're playing good football, but they haven't played now in a couple of weeks. They may or may not be playing tomorrow night. We'll see what happens with that. Or Tuesday night, sorry. Their season's been thrown in a bit of turmoil, so we'll see what happens and whether they can overcome that adversity. The Colts have bounced back after a bad week 1 loss, and they're outscoring their opponents by about 50 over those 3 games. So they played very well. The aforementioned Phillip Rivers playing well. They got Taylor at running back, the kid that they drafted. There's a lot to like with this team. I'm not sure. I think that's one of the games that I may waver on for my pick that I made earlier today. So Jaguars are the Jaguars, not very good, not going anywhere. The Texans, a little surprising that they're 0-4, and they're really not playing good football. It's not even, it's not a good 0-4, if there is such a thing as a good 0-4, because you are what your record says you are. And Bill O'Brien felt had to pay the price for that. He got fired this week, which I'm not terribly surprised about. Bill O'Brien's maybe go back to college. He really did a great job at Penn State after the Joe Paterno debacle. He was a great offensive coordinator without the title when he was with New England before he went to Penn State. So I think he'll land I don't think he'll get a head coaching job in the NFL again, maybe in college, but he's a really good coordinator. He's a horrible GM, which sealed his fate this year. He made some really strange moves. Moving over to the NFC. And I got to start in the NFC East. As we talked about, I mentioned Ray's, what's Ray Drew mentioned here? Colts D is a key. I agree. They got to play good defense or better. Well, they're playing good defense, actually. They've only given up 56 points. So that's a great job. They're one of the few teams playing defense. My recurring theme, play defense. So anyway, NFC East, talked about Ray Gollick. If Ray's still here, he's a Cowboy fan. I'm sure he's pained by their 1-3 record. The good news is, and they're giving up points at an alarming rate, the Cowboys, and scoring points. Pretty good clip. Problem is, they're 1-3. The good news is you're a half game out of first place. And because the Eagles lead at 1-2-1. Giants haven't won a game. they're only a game out. So anyway, that's the weakest division in football, obviously. And the Cowboys, I think, should still come back and win that. Oh, I thought we decided to skip over the Cowboys, Ray said. No, I can't skip over the Cowboys, Ray. But we're going to move on from now until we get to the picks. I like them today against the hapless Giants. Less 8.5, I think. We'll get to that in a second. NFC West. We go from the worst division of football to the best division of football. Seahawks lead. Seahawks are a bit of a surprise to me in how well they played. I'm not surprised they're doing well, but they played really, really good football. Traveled, and my theory on West Coast teams coming to the East Coast that play 1 o'clock games. They overcame a game Dolphin team last week to win, so they played well. The Rams are playing well. They lost a tough one in Buffalo. Can't fault them for that. They got a great head coach in Sean McVay, and they seem to have it back together again a bit. I think they got an interesting game today. Cardinals at 2-2. I mean, they got out of the gate strong, 2-0. They're playing the Jets today on the road. They're a big favorite on the road, and it might be another. Game that I waffle on from my original pick I wrote down. What's Ray got to say here? You lost your best lineman for the season. I know. I do know that, and that's unfortunate. I'll look at some of the injuries maybe before we do the picks. Finishing up here, the 49ers are 2-2, but they've had some really, really, really big injury losses. So and they're getting healthy. Jimmy G's back today. Not sure about the status of the others. We'll kind of recap that here in a little bit. The NFC North, the Packers, again, another team that's not surprising me necessarily that they're winning. It's how they're winning. They're winning big. I think they've scored the most points in the league at 152. I'm pretty sure. So they're winning without. They're beating teams up. So that's a little surprising. The Bears are surprising at 4-1. I'll talk a little bit about that game the other night. We'll talk about it when we do the picks, maybe. No, I'll talk about it now. The Bears beat the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I was recapping week 4, but they've already played their game. So the Bears played well. The Bucks did not play well. Tom Brady's making it's not so much that Tom Brady is making physical errors. It's the mental errors he's making. The pick sixes, the bad decision making he has. They're forgetting how many downs there were at the end of the game or what down they were on. That's not Tom Brady like. And that part of that is because I think, you're used to a certain system. And learning all this new stuff on the fly and and having to think and not just play, I think is having an effect on Tom Brady at the moment. We'll see if that continues. I mean, that's a good football team. They got a lot of weapons, as we've talked about week in and week out. But if they don't protect Tom's not going to succeed. And that's the way you beat Tom Brady. Pressure him. And the whole thing with him not shaking Nick Foles, make sure I don't say Folk. I did go back and look at the tape last week, Drew, and you're right. I said Folk. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, them not shaking Nick Foles' hand after the game. I don't. First of all, they're not supposed to do it. But Brady had done it in previous games. It's the second game in a row he didn't shake Foles' hand after losing to him once being in a Super Bowl 3 years ago. I don't think it's that big a deal. People are going to make a big deal about it because it's Brady and he's a baby, whatever. He's not a baby. He's a tough guy. He's not playing well right now. Ray says is the Belichick influence on the game. I agree. That's kind of what I was alluding to, Ray. So you're absolutely right. Every situation is covered when it comes to Bill Belichick. He's not going to win every game, but you're prepared and you know what's going on in every situation. You don't have to think because you're working on everything. And Brady's still having to think and, learning a new philosophy, both play calling wise and team culture wise. So anyway, moving on, Lions and Vikings. Rick, if you're still here, sorry about your Vikings. I do like the Vikings with the points today. They'll probably lose, but we'll talk about that in a second. Or maybe they won't lose. The Lions 1-3. Matt Patricia is going to lose his job most likely, and that's kind of sad. NFC South, they got some really good teams there. In the Buccaneers and the Saints. Saints are struggling a little bit, but they're still 2-2, and nobody's running away from the pack. I mean, the big surprise to me there is the Falcons being 0-4. I mean, they've had some injuries. Julio Jones has been hurt. Ridley's been hurt. So Matt Ryan doesn't have his normal weapons. But I like them today. But them 0-4, I don't know how Dan Quinn has not gotten fired. I mean, how many leads does a guy have to blow? I mean, obviously he blew a lead in the biggest game of his career. They've blown big leads this year. He had to blow a 25-point lead again last week. Or 2 weeks ago. I don't remember now. But anyway, the guy continues to blow, not just, not touchdown leads. He's got to be on a very severe hot seat. Let's take a quick look at some of the injuries before we do the picks today. Big guys out. Anybody you want to mention that's a big guy being out, mention it. I'm going to go through the thing quickly here. Rams are banged up on the offensive line a bit. Washington, I don't think it matters who's hurt there. Sorry, Washington fans. Eagles still hurting at wide receiver with Jackson and Alshon Jeffries out. Also, Avonte Maddox is out on defense. The Eagles got some talent. They need some help. By the way, their coach tested positive for COVID-19. I think that was the other thing I was trying to think of. So I'm not sure what the situation was with him today. I don't think he can coach unless possibly he's had 2 negative tests in 24 hours since he tested positive. I hope I have that story right. Cardinals. What do we got here? Doesn't look like anything terribly big there. The Jets are missing Darnold, which who knows? Right now he could probably use the break. Joe Flacco will get in and probably maybe throw the ball downfield a little more. The Arizona defense is not that good. Problem is now you set up a chance for have a great weekend, Ray. Thanks for coming, bud. The Jets, you might set up yourself a little problem at quarterback because Flacco has a good day today against a bad Arizona defense. Who knows? But Darnold could be out a while. It's his right shoulder, so he may be out a bit. Plus, they're still hurting at wide receiver with Perriman out. Chris Hogan's out. Crazy Eyes, my wife calls him. Raiders. Trent Brown's out. Their offensive line is a little banged up, which is not good. News for oh God, I lost his name. Help me. Not good for the quarterback. My 60-year-old brain is really not working well. Derek Carr. Sorry about that. Also, they're missing some weapons on the wide receiver end with Gafford and Ruggs being out. No major injuries, I don't think, for the Chiefs. Jaguars at Texans. I don't think it really matters who plays in this game. Nobody's going to want to watch it. Bengals and Ravens. John Ross hurt. Joe Mixon questionable for the Bengals. That would be a big deal. For the Ravens, they got a lot of guys on the questionable list, including Lamar Jackson, but he's going to play. Probably the biggest thing is Tyree Phillips being out on the offensive line. Other than that, I think their guys will all play. Falcons and Panthers. Julio Jones again is questionable, but they need him. But if he plays, I think he'll give it a go today. So I think Matt Ryan's going to bust out today, and the Falcons will get their first win. We'll talk about that in a second. Dolphins and 49ers. Again, it looks like a bunch of guys are back now for 49ers, except they're hurting because the running back situation is still a bit tenable. They are questionable. Mostert and the wide receiver Deebo Samuel are both questionable, so they could play. Jimmy G's back. Kittle's back on defense. Bosa's back. So the 49ers are getting healthy at the right time here. They should win today. We'll talk about that in a second. Giants and Cowboys. Again, nothing major except for as Ray mentioned, their best lineman is now out for the year. Colts and Browns. Nothing terribly major there to kind of look at, I don't think. You got a few guys questionable, but I don't think there's anything that really stands out. Vikings and Seahawks. I don't think there's anything there that'll affect the outcome of the game. Well, maybe Jamal Adams being out for the Seahawks will bode well for Kirk Cousins today, Rick. One of the reasons I like the Vikings. The Seattle's a little banged up. Broncos and Patriots aren't playing. Chargers and Saints. Tyrod Taylor, they named Justin Herbert the starter anyway, so not a big deal there. He's played pretty well in his start so far, since he was a surprising starter a couple of weeks ago. Bills and Titans. Again, who knows what's going to happen here? The Bills are banged up a little bit. John Brown's got a bad knee. I don't think there's any. They're all going to play, except the linebacker Milano. And who knows about the Titans? Who knows what their injury situation is? I mean, it's going to be hard to tell. So anyway, let's move on to the picks at 10:17. Welcome, guys. Anybody joining us? We've covered the college, the MLB situation. Please feel free to go back and watch the show after. And please like and follow and share the show. That's the way we've grown a lot the last few weeks with some of the guests we've had on and some of the outlets I found to share the show on that have been very kind. So if you're one of those, I thank you for that. So let's get started with this week's picks. We got to go back to Thursday, and as you know, I always hope you're trusting my the veracity of my pick. And to prove it, I was on the Bucks on the Bucks -3 Thursday night. So I start out with a loss. Oh, by the way, Drew, you're still here. Congratulations. Let me before we go through, hang on one second, guys. I want to go quickly because I didn't write it down. I apologize. Last week's record and my season record. I went in the toilet last week, so I made it rather easy for me to lose beers when Billy Pulver and Drew gets back up on his feet a little better. We're gonna go out and have a beer because Keith put his beer where his mouth is again. Let's look quick. Where's my recap, Drew? Help me out. Another great job of sports here, sports coverage and good live broadcasting skills. Sorry. So last week, TGI Sports Talk, a.k.a. Keith Engel, was 3-11-1 against the spread. Oh, my God. How bad is that? You can't do much worse than that. Well, I guess you could do 3 games worse than that, but oh, my God. Plus the 3 that I won, by the way, I don't think I had any wagers on. So it was I've been on a bad run here the last 2.5 weeks. So I was 3-11-1. Billy Pulver 6-8-1. And Drew Ehrlich 8-6-1. Great job. Drew wins the beers. Well, actually, Billy wins the beers, I guess, as well. So Keith's buying beer. And my season record was not too bad before last week. And now it is, not good. 30, 31, and 2. All right, so that's where we are going into this week, and we're off to a great start with a loss already. Let's start with the Vikings at the Seahawks at 8:20 tonight. The Seahawks are a 7-point favorite. The odds makers think this will be the highest scoring game of the week. I don't doubt it, to be honest. There's the Seahawks haven't played great defense. The Vikings haven't played great defense. The Seahawks are banged up on defense as it is. Seahawks are averaging 35 points a game. They're at home. They're given 7. I don't know why. I'm all over the Vikings +7 today. And if you want to challenge me, Drew, go ahead. But and I'll try to recap your picks as we go along. I'm going to go through here kind of quicker today. Colts at the Browns, another interesting game at 4:25. Not sure if we're going to get this game. I'm not sure what games we get other than the Giants and the Jets today, given the disruption in the schedule. Colts at the Browns. As we talked about the Colts earlier, they're playing really good, both on offense and defense. Defense exceptionally well. They're at the Browns. They're giving up 1.5. The Browns have played better football than we thought they would, especially offensively. Defensively, they're a little lackluster. I don't like Phillip Rivers in the spot going on the road. I'm taking the Browns +1.5. With that, I'm already got 2 picks against Drew. Oh, 1. He had the Bucks. I had the Viking, or he had the Viking. He's taking the Vikings and the Colts. He also took the Bucks. By the way, I didn't get my pick in Thursday night, Drew, for the first time in 2 years in your pick 'em, but it obviously didn't hurt me. When you do your recap, you can point that out. I would have had the Bucks anyway. Let's moving on. Bengals against Baltimore. I think this is an interesting game. It's a 13-point spread, 12.5 where I'm going to bet it, but we're going to use 13 because I've used the times point spreads all along where I could, and I did have to fill in a couple that they had off the board today. But this is at the Ravens again. The Bengals are playing better football than we thought. Burrow's really played well, I think, over the first 4 games. And Joe Mixon's played well, but Mixon's questionable today. I just don't think they can slow the Ravens down. The running game, Lamar Jackson, I think they're built to blow the Bengals out today. So I got the Ravens -13. Next game. Drew's going to take the Bengals. Ooh. All right, next game. Raiders at the Chiefs. Another interesting game. The Chiefs are 4-0 and Raiders are 2-2. The line here is 13. It's a lot of points. But I'm just not a fan of the Raiders. I don't know how they won their first 2 games so decisively. Beating the Saints at home was pretty impressive, but they're going on the road. Chiefs is Kansas City's a tough place to play. They do have some fans. It's just a tough place to play in general, and the Chiefs are really good at home. And again, the Patriots were in a position to beat them last week, but I'm sorry, John Gruden's not Bill Belichick. I initially had taken, just to make a point here, I had taken the Chiefs. I switched to the Raiders, and I'm now taking the Chiefs. Minus 13. I haven't been able to make up my mind for a while. KCD, I don't know what your pick is. Oh, Chiefs. Is that your pick, Drew? I'm writing down the Chiefs. If it's not, make a comment. Eagles at the Steelers. Steelers are 7. This game's at 1 o'clock. Steelers have got an extra week's rest because of the postponement with Tennessee last week. By the way, one of the things that amazes me, and maybe you, Rick, I'm not sure, when the Titans tested all these guys positive on the Monday and Tuesday after playing the Vikings on the road, a lot of, again, they end up with, I think, 20, they may be over 20 now, positive tests. Not all players, but a lot of them were players. And Vikings had no positive tests, which that's why this whole virus thing, really, it's funny how it picks and chooses what it's going to do. Those guys couldn't have just come down with it on, on Monday. So you would think somebody had to be symptomatic on Sunday when they played, but no Vikings got sick. So anyway, I just find that an interesting little side note. I am on the Steelers as well in this game. Drew picked the Steelers, and Keith is on the Steelers as well. Carolina at the Falcons. So the disappointing Falcons. I've already bet the Falcons minus 2.5. I don't know why, because every time I do this, I swear to God, I'll never play a game they're involved in again, because no matter what I do, I'm on the wrong side. I bet against them, they cover. I bet on them, they win. Or I bet on them, they get killed. Whatever. They're minus 2.5 at home. Carolina's, played pretty well the last couple of weeks. And again, I told you over and over again on this show, I love Matt Rule. I love the hiring of him. And I like some of the things they're doing. But I'm going to have to go with the Falcons here, and Drew's taking Carolina. Moving on, Giants at the Cowboys, minus 9.5. I've actually got them at a point less. So I'm going to go with 8.5 here, Drew, just so you know. 8.5. That's what I'm betting them at later. Dak Prescott has thrown for 450, 470, 500 yards the last 3 games, which is an unprecedented run of 450 plus games. Their defense has not been good, but they're playing Dallas. I'm sorry, they're playing the Giants in Dallas. And I just don't see any way the Giants are going to make a game of this. So very quickly, Cowboys. Drew calls the Cowboys by 20, and I guess I can agree with that, Drew. Next game, Rams at the Washington team, formerly known as the Redskins, the Washington football team. Never covered by a New Jersey team. Maybe not all year. Who knows, Drew? Maybe not. Rams at the Washington football team, formerly known as the Redskins. Can I just call them the Redskins? I probably can't. The Rams are a 7.5-point favorite on the road. The Redskins, the former Redskins, are a mess. Dwayne Haskins is holding on to his job by a thread. Ron Rivera deserves better than this. He's going through some issues, obviously, as you probably know, battling cancer and coaching. And he's a good man and a good coach. He deserves better than this. So, so actually Kyle Allen, I believe, is starting this game for Dwayne Haskins. So Dwayne Haskins has lost his job, and Kyle Allen, I think we know, he was kind of a flash in the pan a bit last year for Carolina when Cam was hurt. Played some good games, but he played just as many bad games. So I'm all over the Rams here. Oh, but Drew is going to go with the Washington team formerly known as the Redskins. Dolphins at the 49ers. This game is an 8-point 49er spread, 4 o'clock on Fox. And as we said, the 49ers are getting healthy. Jimmy G's back. Kittle's as healthy as he's been. Bosa's healthy on defense. The Dolphins have been game. They've been in games. But they're traveling. They're on the road. I'm not a big fan of Fitzpatrick to begin with, and I think against this 49er defense, he's going to be in trouble. 49ers are going to win this game big. And Drew's on the same page. I think we got 5 games to go here, guys. Let's move along. Jacksonville at Houston. This ought to be an exciting game. Thank God they can't. Well, maybe they do have fans in Houston. Maybe nobody will show up. These teams are neither one of them's any good. 0-4. We fired Bill O'Brien in Texas this week. Happy to see one of my old coaches get the nod in Romeo Crennel to be the interim. He certainly will not stay there. They're going to bring somebody else in. This is like the second time, Romeo's got an interim. Actually, third time. He may have done it once in Texas already. He did it in Kansas City as well before they hired Andy Reid. But again, the Texans got to win a game, right? They're a 6-point favorite here. Jacksonville's just not any good. And I will be all over the Texans here. As is Drew. Arizona at the Jets. This is a trap game that worries me a little bit. Cardinals are 7, at least for, from against the spread standpoint. I mean, Arizona should win the game. But, DeAndre Hopkins was banged up a bit. He seems to be healthy this week. They're not playing great defense. Joe Flacco gets a start today for the Jets. Is Romeo 73 years old? No kidding. God, I got to be getting old. Love Romeo, by the way. He was a great defensive coordinator for the Patriots during their first part of the dynasty, early 2000s to the mid-2000s, before he went to Cleveland as a head coach. Flamed out, by the way, as most of Belichick's coaching tree seems to do, Bill O'Brien included. Back to the Cardinals and Jets. I don't know. I'm going to have to go with Arizona here. I'm afraid that Flacco might come up and play good against a poor defense, but we'll see. Drew's on the same page. Arizona. I do know Le'Veon Bell is activated. You're correct, but here's the thing, Drew. Adam Gase has never shown the slightest inkling of how to use Le'Veon Bell. This guy's a brilliant offensive mind. Where? Not in New York, or I'm sorry, New Jersey. Sorry, Jet fans. You're going to lose again today, and I think the Cardinals will cover the 7. That brings us to the Saints. Where are you? Saints and Chargers. Saints are 7.5, playing at home. Herbert's played well in places, in spots. The Chargers defense has played decent, I guess. The Saints have struggled at times, even at home. Got blown out by the Packers at home, but they're not playing the Packers. They're playing the Chargers. I'm going to be all over the Chargers, all over the Saints in this game. I don't see how they can lose this game at home. So, but I will lay the 7.5 points. And we'll wait for Drew's pick, but I'm going to move on to Denver and the Patriots, which apparently we will not pick. In case Drew was wrong, which I don't have any reason to doubt you, I was going to take the Patriots in that game, just an FYI. -5, that would have been. But again, it's irrelevant now. And then if it should happen, the Bills at the Titans. The line I have is 6.5. I'm going back here to San Diego, writing down Drew's pick of San Diego. And the last game of the week, Buffalo at Tennessee, if it happens. God knows. We don't even know what's going on in Tennessee. We don't know who's sick, who's not, because you really can't release the names. You can figure it out by the injury report and the COVID list and different things. But, it's been 2 weeks. They haven't even really been able to practice except the illegal ones they put together on their own that they're being investigated for. Things are a mess in Tennessee right now. And I'm not so sure that they're playing that good a defense even with their 3-0 start. I've got to play the Bills minus the 6.5 here if this game happens. And that'll make it harder for the Patriots because we're going to be 2.5 games behind them now after this week. And Drew, sorry, I wrote down the wrong team for you. I wrote that down for you. Tennessee for the reigning champion, Drew Ehrlich. Thanks for picking along with me, Drew. I guess that's going to do it for this week, guys. It's not a lot of – there's some interesting matchups today, as we just talked about. I think it'll be an interesting afternoon. I hope things stay under control with the COVID situation in the NFL. I think they got to get smart. As I mentioned, I'm a little worried about the Florida. What's Drew saying here? Tennessee facility closed again. Staff. Yeah, I think I read that this morning that a staff member tested positive. I think there's a very good chance that game could get canceled or postponed on Tuesday. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Going to get harder. You get 2 games postponed, it's going to be difficult, to make up. So the NFL will figure some way around. There's too much money involved to cancel the season. I get a little worried, as I said at the outset, about fans coming back into the venues and larger numbers. Florida now, as I said earlier, has the okay to have 100% attendance at all the games. Doesn't mean that the teams involved will allow 100% capacity. But even in the limited capacities that I've seen, both college and the NFL, when it comes to fans, they tend to congregate again. You see a bunch of people doing the right things. They're in the group that they came with masks on. And the rules for the mask could be different in different states. I understand that. But then I see a group of 200 people, nobody with a mask on, jumping up, yelling, cheering, spitting all over each other, and it can't be good. And then the coaches, the situation in the NFL with the coaches getting fined because I don't see the point of wearing a mask when every time you're going to get in somebody's face to talk to them, whether it's a player or referee, you take it off. Why is there a mask rule? Again, guys, I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to know what's right and what's wrong, and I'm going to follow the guidelines of what's laid down by the CDC, and then the leagues are going to make their own rules and whatnot, and just be smart. I've gone out. I've lived my life, not a whole lot differently than I did before, but I comply with what I'm asked to do. It's a small sacrifice, guys. So we're going to see as more teams start to have more people in the stands, what happens. Because again, right now we're talking about players and coaches and staff members being sick or testing positive anyway. How sick they get, is relative to their specific situation. But right now as we open up the stands in all these sports, so come the World Series, come the NLCS, we're going to have fans in at least some locations in every sport. And we'll see what happens. One last thing, guys. I have been told that I need to cover hockey more on this show by Brett Cloutier. I was hoping Brett would call in to talk about the hockey draft, and he didn't, but that's okay. We're going to talk about hockey later on. I mean, this season was so messed up. Hockey is one thing that I have, not focused on as being a fair weather fan, and the Rangers going out when they came back and started playing in the bubble again. They went out so quickly that I pretty much kind of lost sight of it, other than, getting my Doc Emmerich fill, because I love Doc Emmerich, and I think you ought to be calling every major sport, every sport, even Little League. I think Doc Emmerich ought to do. Love him. love his voice. I love the way he calls games. He's just a professional all the way. So anyway, well, when we get closer to the season, and I'll have Brett Cloutier, who is a former professional hockey player, by the way. He happens to work for me. But he did play minor league hockey here in Albany. He played in Binghamton. He played in, he that close to the big show. And I get on him a lot. We joke a lot about, his career and stuff. But I'd love to have Brett on one day just to chat a little bit about it. And we'll get into some hockey stuff. So, Brett, when you see this, make note of that. I don't boycott hockey. I just haven't had the opportunity really to dive into it. So anyway, guys, that's kind of going to do it for today. I want to remind you that I've got Harvey Ayrton, former writer for the New York Times, New York Post, Daily News, author of many, many books. Let me put up a little, bear with me a second, guys. Let me just put something up here quickly so you can see it. Where is Harvey? Harvey. He's a writer of many, many books. He's got a new book coming out soon. It can be pre-ordered called Our Last Season, A Writer, a Fan, a Friendship. Sounds like a great book from what Harvey's told me about it. And I'm excited. And if you ever read any Harvey's other books, When the Garden Was Eden, The Rivalry, Driving Mr. Yogi, I think is one of his books. He's written a lot of books. I can't name them all here, but he's going to be a great guest on Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time. I'll have a promo coming up about that. I hope you'll join me. I've had a great time this morning, as always, guys. I love your feedback. I love chatting with you in the room. Call more often. Please continue to watch the show, like and follow the page, share the videos so others can see them. And I'll see you right here on Friday morning at 8 a.m. on TGI Sports Talk with Keith Engel on the MLB Network. See you then.